Now, it's time for both of us to get on a SpaceX rocket to go on the Hubble telescope. And I want you to look at the Hubble and tell me what you see in the next 5-year horizon.
Wow.
Or what you expect to see as an industry professional with so much technological insight and experience. What do you see coming and what do you want to see?
I love these kind of questions.
I know.
I think, as always, it's about following the consumer, right? It's really understanding. I mean, you look at what's happened over these last few years. We can't ignore the further fragmentation of all the different channels. It's been a momentous week for one certain social media commerce channel.
Of course.
So I think from our point of view, it's that continued progression, and it's just further about. As with everything, and I would say this because I work for a data company, but
Hello everyone, welcome to the eCommerce podcast. Today, here we're in London downtown at Profitero and Publicis offices with VP of Industry Insights, Andrew Pearl. Thanks for having us today, Andrew.
Hey, well, pleasure to see you.
Now, I want to come a little bit on the omnichannel reality because you mentioned digital influence sales. You mentioned the tricky nature of the offline and online. And I also agree with you. We're all at a reach where Forrester predicted that we're going to reach 70% digital influence sales around 2027. We're 2 years ahead. So how do you bring those two ecosystems in reality, in real life, in terms of CPG measurement? And where is the unlock between the offline and online influence and the omnichannel share? Is there any holy grail on the horizon yet?
That's exactly the holy grail. It's what we've all been searching for, right, for years. And I know when I was brand side, I was exactly that. So I think there's multiple ways. So one of them, obviously, is working with the linking our digital shelf data to omnichannel or sales out data. So through our partnership with Circana, we are linking. We're doing exactly that for retailers where they have e-commerce data. We can then link our digital shelf data into their liquid data system so that now you can create these great waterfall charts. So you can see exactly for the first time if I create some or run some new content, or if I increase my ratings and reviews, or if I run a sponsored search campaign, so I can see the impact on, am I getting better conversion? Am I increasing my share of page, better visibility? But ultimately, through Circana data, am I driving more sales? So it's still early stages. We launched it at US, UK, and we're sort of rolling it out more. So I think that will continue to grow. I'm sure others will. It is the first, one of the most innovative, but that will continue to develop. I think the other thing is all about education. And still, I'm very like you. Clearly, I have the opportunity. I'm asked to speak to CEOs, to C-suites about things like this digitally influenced shopper. And sometimes it is that education that is needed, because in some organizations it's still where the in-store, the big standard, nice full truck deliveries that they've lived on for the last 200 years. They get that these small orders and this sudden investment, it's very, very tricky. So it is about education and driving that from the top down, driving that understanding about why they should focus. I mean, it sounds crazy. Going back about 4 or 5 years, I was asked to speak to a CEO of a global CPG about why they should focus on Amazon as a sort of business unit in its own right. Now no one would consider that, but it shows in some ways how fast we've gone and fast we've moved, but in other ways that message is still getting through. And I think the final thing is, again, sitting where we are today. We are the Publicis acquisition 2 years ago, in a wonderful television center in the media city that we have here. Just the end of last year, Publicis acquired the Mars United Commerce. That is one of the largest private commerce agencies.
Hi to Ethan from here.
There we go. Yeah, and there's a lot more to come on this. It's still very early stages, but together, the power of, for example, Mars United Commerce with data driven by Profitero in terms of driving visibility means that we can reach millions and millions and millions of shoppers around the world, both and influence that from a...
Have you started using Marilyn yet?
Not yet. No. There are lots of... It's early stages. There's a lot of internal conversations our colleagues are doing, but There's some exciting news coming up, and we're really excited about how this is going to work together for the benefit of
Speaking of joining
shoppers.
forces and taking advantage of the technological developments, I want to come back to the two-letter sexy word of our decade, AI.
Yeah, yes.
Can you give us a little bit of? I learned this phrase from Neil Arora, by the way. How the sausage is done. We call it what's running under the hood usually in the US. But can you give us a little bit of interesting examples how AI been deployed or utilized in Profitero world?
Yes.
Of course, this is a technological engine, but if there's any new features driven by AI, can you walk us through a little bit of what we can see?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first thing goes back to the very beginning. I said about surfacing the insights. It's about that get stage. So we launched what we call Ask Profitero. It's our own AI chatbot, and it is simple. Like, I know that going into Profitero, there's a lot of data there. We have huge amounts of data, and sometimes you think, where do I start? But all you want to do is, look, just tell me what is driving my sales, or what is why am I losing visibility? All these kind of things. So that's what we did. We created this AI chatbot, and now, if you're a marketer and you're just interested in, what perhaps with content, where are there opportunities, where have I got compliance issues, and where have I got opportunities to improve? You can ask that question. Supply chain, again, you can visualize really very clearly within just asking one question the impact of being out of stock. And sales, again, we cover digital shelf, we cover assortment and availability, we cover pricing, content, search, ratings and reviews. That's five data sets. Right. Just ask one question. Ask Profitero will tell you, I'm losing sales on Carrefour. What's the reason? And we can or I'm losing it on Amazon. What it is, we can sort of surface that. Just one real I think great case study. So we also do a lot of webinars for our clients. I'm recording one tomorrow actually on how to get the most out of ratings and reviews. And you might have hundreds and hundreds of reviews to go through. You can create a word cloud, you can export the data, but that all takes time and they're a bit messy. Just ask Profitero, ask a question. What are the key issues, or what are the main negative issues for my brand? What are the positive issues? Within 3 questions, within about 3 minutes, I can tell you what is the most important issue that shoppers are telling you is a problem with their brand, and I can tell you what are the main products whether the retailers it's achieving, those are appearing, and what are the products they're appearing on. So within, say, 3 minutes, rather than having to analyze hundreds and hundreds of reviews and just get lost in the fog.
And you don't need to know SQL or Python to do that.
No. You can ask a question, tell me, so that's great. So that's one example. I've mentioned already shelf intelligent content. This is where, so we have it's bringing a culmination of various different tools. Our search optimizer, which is our AI keyword tool to optimize, giving you quantified keywords by retailer. So you can understand, I mentioned 1 in 7 keywords are common across retailers.
Right.
So understanding what is the most important list by retailer means you can prioritize those. At the same time, then we have our content KPI tool to using AI to analyze hundreds and thousands of content changes on retailers' websites and see which are the ones that move the needle. So, as I said, we can highlight the keywords. We can highlight the content, the written content that you need to include, and you just put your own. At the moment, at this stage, give it 6-12 months, it'll be a fully automated closed loop system. Now, as brands are sort of learning to trust it, and because they want to keep control, obviously, of brand equity, you approve that, and then we can automatically syndicate it out through our partnership with Sourcify, for example. So that's where it's really exciting. And again, this is only valuable and beneficial if people can understand the benefit from it. So we have case studies where people have used our content recommendations from Shelf Intelligent Content. So really good increase, 17%, one brand, 17% increase in traffic, but double that, it was a 34% increase in sales. And that's just simply by taking our recommendations, going yes, and letting us do all the rest. So, this is where AI is ultimately changing and really that's pushing us to that go stage. Go and automating recommendations and just making things more efficient. Avoid wasting time on things that don't move the needle. Just focus your time on things that are going to drive your sales.
Automate and accelerate as fast as you can.
That's it.
Instead of waiting for the perfect or best solution.
Exactly.
Sometimes agility is much more effective and impactful than waiting for some magical things to happen. But
Absolutely.
This brings my earlier point about the organizational structure, because you talked about different data sets, you talk about different functions. Now you're talking about content team, media team, and taking action on the digital content, and meanwhile managing it with the media investment and reporting it to the sales. So organizational benchmark study. We are all familiar with these three structured team models: siloed, sidekick, and democratized, or collaborations.
Yep.
And one of the punchline of the report was COE is not going anywhere. And I see that I will bring this chart up on the actual podcast video, but if I remember correctly, now the sidecar is a little bit of decline from 23 to 24. Silo and collaboration, or democratized model, is on the rise.
Yes.
What is your take on the COE? Is COE making a comeback? And if it's because it was in decline the last couple of years from my observation, and if it's making a comeback, what topics, what capabilities they're focusing on most this time around?
Yeah, it's a great question, and exactly that. You mentioned the three models. So that the democratized model has actually doubled since 2021.
Right.
Having said that, it's still only about 30%. So 30% of CPGs. The majority are in this kind of still the siloed or the sidecar. So there's progress, but there's still some way to go. I think COEs definitely. It's interesting. We have seen a resurgence this year from the data. So in total, about 2/3 of all organizations have some form of COE. But I think what's very interesting, if you break it down by region, it's quite, so LATAM and APAC lead the way. So LATAM, I think 86%, APAC 82%.
Power to the emerging markets.
Exactly. But I think that's it. They have, a lot of these emerging markets have the capabilities.
Right.
And yet perhaps sometimes if the investment might be in some of the other markets, but they need that expertise to drive it through. And often they're the ones that are teaching the other regions, because they have the most advanced capabilities.
The QBR calls.
That's it. So that's it. I think what's key at the same time, yes, it's resurgent. I think what's really important is that leaders use the COE to drive the education, the understanding, the innovation, but also back it up with accountability.
Right.
Still about 40% of CPGs from our reports don't have any form of regular KPI setting. Now, how can you? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
41% don't have measurable goals for digital shelf. So how can you expect to drive that engagement of digital shelf if you don't have those?
Do you have the categories, top leading categories for this KPI?
I don't want to say.
Okay.
We can break it down.
On a coffee break. Okay.
On a coffee break, we can do that. But yeah, we have, because we have data by the 4 regions, so APAC, LATAM, EMEA, and North America, and also we have some of the key verticals as well. We can break down that data. I think again, leaders as well are the ones that are much more likely to do it. In terms of the question on the topic, so number one is still the biggest thing is about education, because I think, yes, in general there's good appreciation. So appreciation for COEs is high, but it's very interesting if you break that down. If you look at the C-suite, they love it. So top marks. If you go down to kind of regional level, yeah, it's good, but it drops down 5%. If you go down to the next stage down, which is kind of local market e-com lead, it drops down another 10-15%. And I think that's the danger, is that it's too often seen as a C-suite tool. And they use it as a way to pat themselves on the back, and they've done a good job with driving education. But they're not really understanding the needs of the local markets. And that's still something I hear a lot, is that, yes, it's good to have it, but in my local market where we have retailers who don't have ratings or reviews. Why are you giving me a target? Or why are you forcing these on, what's happening in Walmart, what's happening in Tesco, what's happening in Amazon? That's not relevant.
Detailed local understanding.
Yeah, exactly.
And ability to take a snapshot or X-ray, I think, is what would make COE output more meaningful for the local market.
So I think that's the one thing. It's still about driving education, driving that accountability, but it has to be done with the local market understanding. And that's still something that perhaps is falling a little bit short in some CPGs.
Now I want to talk about one of the most important topics of digital commerce, which is the JBP. Yeah. Because you mentioned 41% of CPGs don't have digital shelf metrics, but they're the ones making important decisions, planning, and agreement on the JBPs. How a solution like Profitero and powerful digital shelf insights fueling beneficial, productive JBP discussions? Because when you have data, and I'm putting myself on the retailer side, we don't need to mention some names, but when a party comes with a powerful data, there's a more likelihood to convince the other side to get what you want.
Yep.
And if you're weak on the data side or insight side, you won't be able to drive your own agenda, so it will be one side, it won't be a tango. How Profitero can fuel these JBP conversations in favor of CPG?
Yep. Again, JBPs, I think from the work our advisory team do, it's one of the biggest topics of conversation as well that they're talking about a lot. So I just want to quickly clarify from my last comment that the 40% or 41% of CPGs that don't have measurements, what I mean by that is they have digital shelf data, but what they don't do is set targets at a
right.
local market level, just to clarify that. But on the JBP front, yeah, there's been good progress. Again, I started off in Profitero 8 years ago, like I don't think digital and JBP and e-commerce just never really matched. Now it's about over 80% of CPGs do mention digital or e-commerce within their JBP discussion, which is good. And that's grown, so it's 83% this year, it was 74% last year. But again, I think with a lot of this, if you scratch below the surface, there's an element of, it's kind of a tick box exercise. So still half of all CPGs don't really share any data within their JBPs, and that's criminal. It comes down to you have this wealth of knowledge of how shoppers are searching on their retailer website, and if you're not sharing that data with them, you're not showing your category credentials, but you're not putting your best foot forward. Again, leaders are much more likely to do that. So I think the key thing is, yes, include it, but make sure you do it properly and not just as a one-off. Again, leaders are much more likely to have conversations throughout the year and also much more likely to set specific targets. So within your JBPs, let's agree, we will run a category project on your search taxonomy, and we will achieve this, and we will do this in this particular time period. Or we want to set and this may be brand driven, I want to set targets for search and specific targets. Because again, you can only hope to grow if you set targets. The one thing that I would say is sharing that data is all important. All digital shelf data is publicly available information. So it's fine to share one information on one retailer with another. It's not obviously sales data, but digital shelf data is absolutely fine. And we encourage our clients to do that. So if you're going to talk to retailer A, show them how you're doing in retailer B and say, look, I'm your partner. Yeah. I want to work with you. I want you to be the best for my brand. I want retailer A.
And we can grow category together.
Let's grow category together, yeah. And so this comes down to my old world, category management. Yeah, e-category management we're seeing fast growth this year. Now, it depends. So I'm going to throw out some stats there, and there's always, you can hide behind stats. So 50%, or just over 50% of CPGs have some dedicated resource of e-category managers.
Right.
Now, probably that's going to be in one or two priority markets, typically almost certainly US, it might be UK, it might be France, Germany, it might be China, who knows? But it's, they have some. I think if you talk with the majority, they'll say, well, yes, it's only my priority market. But if you look at what leaders do, again, those fastest growing, the ones that 75% of them will have a dedicated resource. Again, probably still in their largest markets, but they're using that information to drive retailer influence. And again, in a crowded market, in a tough times, that's what's really giving them the point of difference.
And it can make the needle move.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what matters in the early stages.
Because I think the danger is, I have a lot of conversations, what is e-category management? There's a danger that it's too brand-centric, that when I talk to retailer, I'm talking about my share of search, my content, but you just apply the same category management principles as you do in store. It's all focus on the shopper first, focus on how they're searching, focus on what they're looking for, be it education, validation, and use those conversations to then drive your search and content topics. So it's just a simple mind shift, but I think e-category management will be the key for 2025. So if you're not involved, then look how you can be, or talk with your priority markets and see what they're doing, because that will give you that real point of difference with your client and with your customers.
You mentioned the prioritization of the mature market. Of course, when you have a major market like US, or if you're in cosmetics and China being your number one market, of course you're going to prioritize this. But these markets are mostly saturated, and the growth is not as high digits like the emerging market. Can you give us a couple of examples where digital shelf implementation or effective digital shelf measurement really makes an impact in a saturated, mature market, can drive noticeable, significant growth, not just 2-3%, but more noticeable, more double digits maybe? Is there any good examples around that topic that where digital shelf excellence could drive meaningful growth in a mature market?
Yeah, yes, I think it's kind of looking at it two ways. It is about a lot of the things we talked today. It's about to win
125 different things coming.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's easy for me to sit here saying this. If you're a global leader, it's you think, where do I start? Where do I go next?
But digital shelf excellence sounds very easy, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's why I love my job. It's easy for me to say. I don't have to do it. But no, I think yes, it's about fostering innovation, fostering education through the COE. It's about using AI-driven tools, and they are providing point of difference. So I mentioned about shelf intelligent media, about shelf intelligent content, how in a world where everyone is optimizing content, you can still get 34% sales growth just by using some AI-driven tools. I think, again, fundamentally, it does come down to unlocking the brilliant basics I mentioned. I said about the uplift. Still, despite uplifts getting smaller, I said, you can still get 3 times uplift by winning organically. You can still get, we've seen it drop down, but still just a bit over 30% growth by adding in videos. And there is still a long way to go. So yes, it's saturated, but in a lot of retailers, and particularly outside of Amazon, there's still a long way to catch up. I mentioned less than 5% of brands' KPIs. Right. So I think, sorry, I'm kind of repeating myself. There's nothing new, but it feels like there's a lot of progress, and yet there's still a lot to do.
A lot to be done.
A lot to be done. I think the final thing is about securing growth at the right pace. I think the biggest challenge we see is when brands and CPGs try and democratize their data throughout their organization, try and grow too quickly and go, right? It's a saturated market. We need to do this. But if their market isn't ready, doesn't have the resource, and doesn't have the ability to do that, then it's always going to fail. And that's another, as sort of an offshoot from our global benchmark report, we produce what we call our Omnichannel assessment tool. Mm-hmm. So it helps you across areas like data, strategy, content, search optimization. It helps you benchmark your performance versus leaders in your category and in your region as well. And I think where this is really helpful and where this is helping drive growth for a lot of our clients in saturated markets, it just gives a clear action plan. Well, one, it's a validation that actually I'm not, you look at the L'Oreals of this world who are doing amazing things, and you might not have the same resource or and you might think, well, how can I keep up with them? In some cases, actually, you do what you do at your pace, and you can still get some good growth. So, yeah, taking that tool, again, it's another free tool. Please go to profitero.com if you want to see it. You can just take it, and then you'll get a tool. You'll benchmark your performance versus your category, and it will give you some key actions to take. So I think it's using that, and brands are increasingly doing that and seeing where they can differentiate that. Because ultimately what that does is it gives leaders the opportunity to say, okay, this area or this region or this market needs help here. And it might be it might just be they need a data expert, right, to grow. And they've got growth opportunities, but they're struggling because of that. This one, it might be content. And so focusing, again, at a market level can really help drive growth in these saturated markets.
No, I love it. And the thing it makes it so actually exciting and unpredictable is this complicated nature, to be honest with you, so many variables. Now, it's time for both of us to get on a SpaceX rocket to go on the Hubble telescope. And I want you to look at the Hubble and tell me what you see in the next 5-year horizon.
Wow.
Or what you expect to see as an industry professional with so much technological insight and experience. What do you see coming and what do you want to see?
Wow. I love these kind of questions.
I know.
I think, as always, it's about following the consumer, right? It's really understanding. I mean, you look at what's happened over these last few years. We can't ignore the further fragmentation of all the different channels. It's been a momentous week for one certain social media commerce channel.
Of course.
TikTok was off and now it's back on again. But you go back over the 10, 20 years. First it was online. I mean, I remember, again, my previous brand, I won't mention who they were, but we put the youngest person on the job of online because it was kind of like the future and young people understood it. Now, then it's Amazon. Now it's Omni. And now it's TikTok. And then what's the next thing? So I think if I approach it from what brands should do, we look at it as a two-pronged approach. Focus on the now. Focus on the Omni and how you can continue to drive that democratization and really take an Omni approach. So it is a seamless shopping experience. We don't talk about online and offline. It is ultimately shoppers are researching online first and then expect to have a similar experience when they go in store. So driving that. But in the next 5 to 10 years, it's kind of where are your shoppers going to be at? Dare I say it, we don't know, the Amazons, the Tesco's, the Walmarts, the Kroger's, the Carrefours of this world. Some of them may win, some of them may fail. And I think you've got to just sort of really understand and think about ultimately where your shoppers are going to be. So what do we want? I think for brands to sort of take that sort of dual approach and really look at where they should be focusing on. I mean, that's going to drive a lot of media investment. I think what's very interesting is obviously the measurement of social commerce. We're having conversations on that at the moment of how we can help our customers to do that. Again, that's more for now, but
some more announcements coming in there.
I'm not going to. We're seeing what we can do because that's obviously the next stage, right? You've got to. My kids are shopping and keep telling me about where they're shopping, and they saw this video and how they were influenced and all these kind of things. And ultimately they are they're going to be the purchasers going forward. So we need to learn from them, but as a data provider, we need to help our customers to follow for the consumers, follow them along that journey. So yes, we can do it now, 1,200 retailers globally, but we need to move to that next stage. So I think from our point of view, it's that continued progression, and it's just further about. As with everything, and I would say this because I work for a data company, but the only way for true success is by data-driven understanding.
Right.
So it's how we can drive those further automations. At the moment now, we're seeing this in media, we're seeing it in content. What is that next stage? Well, there are far cleverer people in our business who are working on that, and I'm excited to see what comes next. But it is that next stage of automation of closed loop systems so that brands can optimize their content, drive visibility more effectively going forward.
I'm excited what's waiting us ahead on the journey. And I'm very glad that data is being one of the main drivers of this conversation. And we'll see how many years it's now. From today, we call it the commerce.
That's
not
it.
E-commerce or digital commerce anymore, but it's going to definitely be a heck of a journey.
Yep.
And I'm very happy to be on this journey with brilliant folks like you. Andrew, we came on to a lovely conversation today. Thanks for having us in this brilliant offices of Publicis and Profitero in downtown London. And I got a lot of good insights here today. Thanks for sharing all these numbers. So I want to thank you. And it was a great session again, as usual. Always pleasure to be with you. Thanks for tuning into eCommerce Podcast. Today we're with VP of Industry Insights at Profitero, Andrew Pearl. Brilliant guy. If you don't follow him on LinkedIn or other social channels, definitely do. And we're going to share some metrics or QR codes about the organizational benchmark report as well. Until next time, stay ahead of the curve.